Okay, so as I turn the recording on, I want to again welcome you to How to Work with Your School Nurse. I want to thank the Chu and Chan Foundation for their funding that made this whole webinar series possible. It's really been valuable. We've gotten a lot of really good feedback on it. So we're going to have 3 speakers today. First, we're going to have Kathleen Rose, a longtime school nurse who has held leadership positions in the National Association of School Nurses and the Florida Association of School Nurses, and is now a school nurse consultant. Then we'll have Maya Brown-Zimmerman, who is a member of our board of directors, who has a 7-year-old son with Marfan, and she will briefly give her insights and her experiences. And then Kate Celauro from Backpack Health, a really key Marfan Foundation partner, will tell you how their app can make it easy for you to share the necessary information about your child with the school nurse. If you have any questions during the presentation, please put them in the Q&A box, which you can see on your screen. We're going to leave time at the end for questions. And anything that is not answered, we will try to answer separately, whether it's in our social media or in e-news or in Connective Issues, because your questions, we want to get your questions answered. So I'm going to take myself off video, and I'm going to hand it over to Kathleen, who, Kathleen, you can now grab, I think you can now grab control of the mouse, unless I screwed that up. I'm sorry, guys. It's not supposed to happen. Let me just put this back on here and give her the remote control first. That would help. Okay. So Kathleen, can you grab that now? So Kathleen, you need to just go off mute because I don't hear you talking. Kathleen, can you go off mute so we can hear you and we can get your presentation going? So we have practiced this, and so I'm wondering, Kathleen, you okay over there? There we go. I see Helene looking, Kathleen looking for her PowerPoint there. So let's give her a minute. There we go. Great. Kathleen, we just can't hear you. So if you can get your volume on.
Okay, now can you hear me?
Now we hear you. Great. Thank you so much.
Okay, good. Okay.
Best laid plans, right?
I so apologize. I promise you what I have to say about school nursing is on spot, but yes. Technology is not. Okay. We're going to be discussing working with your school nurse. I have 30 years experience working as a school nurse, and much of what I have to say comes from my experience of working with parents and students and staff in the schools. You need to begin with looking at who you're actually working with. How often is a registered nurse in your school? How many other schools does he or she cover? During my entire school nursing career, I never had less than 3 schools, and I often had 8 or more. How quickly can the school nurse be reached in an emergency? And who covers for her when she's not there? And is the school nurse, the RN, new to your student or the same one as last year? If it's the same nurse as last year and there have been no major changes, in meds or hospitalizations or disease progression, etc., you'll just have a meeting to update things. If it has been 2 years or longer, though, treat the nurse as a brand new nurse, because with so many students, we can forget, and we need you to be the advocate. Don't take that chance with your child. Some other things that school nurses would like you to know. Number one, we want to keep your child safe, but we need you to help us. We are the health professional in the school, and we are constantly learning. We may know a lot or very little about Marfan syndrome. The best approach with the nurse is to treat her as the health professional she is. You probably already know this, but here is some information about Marfan syndrome. But remember that you are the professional about your child, and we need your information. I would like to share with you the signs, symptoms, and restrictions that my daughter has. And please don't assume if you told the doctor, teacher, or anyone else something that they told the RN. They don't, usually. I've had teachers tell me something and I'm going, I didn't know that. And they go, well, we figured if they told us, they certainly told you. Well, they don't relay stuff to us. You're going to need a meeting with your school nurse. This is not one of the things that you can handle on the first day of school when everybody else is running in and out, but it needs to be a regular sit-down meeting so they realize the importance of your student and your student's condition. And some things you need to bring: information about your student, including the diagnosis. Is this Marfan, or is it a related syndrome? How far has the disease or syndrome progressed? Do you have aortic enlargement, a slipped lens in the eye, pectus carinatum or excavatum, very flexible joints, slipped kneecaps, scoliosis, pneumothorax? What is happening? The doctor's orders, bring them with you to this meeting. Any updates since your last meeting with the RN, and the medication list. These include the current meds that your child may take at home, any that will need to be given at school, and those needed for emergencies. Remember, we may never give atenolol at school, but when we call 911, they would need to know that your child was on it. Then the things that we will need to know, in addition to what you're bringing: what are your child's limitations? What are their restrictions? And so that this doesn't become a very negative meeting, be sure to share the child's permissions, what they're allowed to do, things they would like to do or wish they could do, and then the emergency signs that we need to be aware of. I would ask you to schedule the meeting before school starts and actually make an appointment. If you just show up, you may find out that your time with the nurse would be cut short because she did already have another scheduled meeting. Explain your student's condition, the symptoms to look for, the medications that he or she is taking at home and at school, and any physical limitations. Bring the doctor's orders with you, and bring the medication list with the pharmacy information sheets if you have them. We can't take the health record home. That's a legal document. It has to stay at school. But we can take the pharmacy information sheets home and get a better idea of the medications excuse me, that your child is on. If there is a summer school nurse, make an appointment with him or her. And I say that because they tend to have fewer students and a little more time than right at the beginning of the school year with the scheduled school nurse. However, you need to make sure when you have that meeting that they understand that this documentation is for the new school year, because summer school is part of the previous school year. So the summer school nurse right now would be finishing up the 17-18 school year. But what you are bringing is for the 18-19 school year. And despite your best efforts, the documentation may get filed with the summer school paperwork, especially if they have one school that's doing summer school for several surrounding schools. They won't send all those health records over. And so the information may get filed with the summer school, in the summer school file. On the day of the meeting, get copies of all the documents created. Be firm, but kind as you say this, but just say, really, I don't mind. I'll sit right here while you make the copies, because you need a copy in case it does get filed with summer school, and trying to retrieve that at the beginning of the year is almost impossible, seriously. Take those documents with you the first day of school, because the nurse may not see the record until after school starts. Then when you're giving information to the school nurse, certainly bring in general information on Marfan syndrome for her professional library. But please write out specific information on your child, information to go into the care plan and the emergency care plan, information that will be stored in the health record, information to go to the teacher. You can just make one list and put little stars next to the things and tell the school nurse, those things that are starred, I need to make sure the teacher knows those things. And then bring in the doctor's orders. I've said that about 3 times now, but there really is an important reason why you bring in the doctor's orders. A parent's directive, for example, allowed to rest as needed, is usually only good for 3 days. Doctor's orders are legally binding and have an order for what you are requesting. The allowed or restricted activities, such as modified PE, across the country, there is a push to start classes and fulfill the educational requirements earlier and earlier. No longer do the PE activities begin the second week of school. Now it's the second day. You don't have the luxury of an extra week to get the doctor's orders to the teacher. Okay. And orders need to be renewed every school year. You are the professional when it comes to your child, but we can't take orders from parents as part of our Nurse Practice Act. So what you need to do is have the doctor write down that information so that it becomes part of the order. And by the way, please always give the original to the school nurse, because that will go in the health record. That's a legal document going into the legal record. And certainly you can give a copy to the teacher, the PE teacher, or whatever. So what if you're in a school district like mine and the school nurse isn't there every day? What are we going to do to keep your child safe? It's a combined effort. Number one, the school nurse should be training the clinic staff and the teachers. And we will use what you have written and clearly stated in writing the students' do's and don'ts. Give symptoms of concern and who, besides the school nurse, should be called. And then make sure the office, the clinic, the nurse, and the teacher have those numbers. It's happened multiple times over the years. The parent is in a situation where they can't answer the phone, they have to turn their phone off, whatever. But they've said, if you can't reach me or my husband, please call Aunt Ruth. She'll be glad to come take care of the child. Except they forget to give us Aunt Ruth's number, and then we can't reach them. So it seems like a lot of little details, but when there is an emergency or a near emergency going on, you don't want any delays in getting your child taken care of. So the responsibilities actually are different between the school nurse and other staff. Other staff can't do the school nurse's job. And her job is to be the chief health officer of the school. She or he is a member of the safety team. The nurse develops the care plan and the emergency care plan, and then trains and communicates that with the staff. And the nurse attends IEPs and 504s. The other staff their responsibility is to respond appropriately to the care plan, the emergency care plan, and directives from the IEP or the 504. They're going to find out those things when the training occurs. So they have a responsibility to attend those trainings, and then they need to communicate any concerns they have to the school nurse. You can kind of bump that up a little bit when there has been a doctor's appointment and the doctor says, okay, the mitral valve prolapse is getting a little more severe, so we might want to look at activity level for a while. Okay, when you tell whoever's manning the clinic that, please tell them, be sure to tell this to the school nurse. Okay. Involving the school nurse in IEPs and 504s is critical. Ask, and if necessary, demand to have the school nurse present. This is a medical condition we are discussing, and the meeting should be held when the nurse can be there. And remember, if changes need to be made to that IEP or 504, and the nurse wasn't there, and the nurse finally sees it and goes, whoa, wait a minute, we need to add this, or this needs to be addressed, another IEP or 504 meeting will have to be called. This is going to lead to further delays. Student safety and student protections can be compromised in the interim. And as parents, you're missing work again. So all in all, I have said repeatedly, advocate for your child, and I will make another whole slide just for that because it's that important. Please advocate for your child. Your child has a normal IQ. They have the ability to do so many things in this life, but they need that IEP or the 504 for the physical condition. I advise you to start advocating when the diagnosis is made. I noticed one of the callers had an 8, 5, and 3-year-old. Okay, when that 3-year-old is going to pre-K, those things that I said need to be brought in, bring them right then. Just get used to having the doctor's orders. I grant you in elementary school, the teachers and the PE teachers kind of work around activity restrictions, but it doesn't work that way in middle school and high school. So just start doing it right from the beginning. Make sure each teacher knows allowed and restricted activities, symptoms of a crisis, and who to contact when there is a concern. Okay. Make sure those things are in writing. Ask for a copy of what's given to the teachers. And if the nurse says, oh, it's okay, I just sit down and talk to them. No, that's not okay. Because if that teacher has a bad case of the flu, are they really going to come in and explain to the substitute what's going on? But if it's in writing, a copy of that goes into the substitute folder. And substitutes, by the way, are under the same HIPAA and FERPA restrictions as the regular classroom teacher. And if you're told, oh, well, we'll schedule an IEP, then get an interim 504. The IEPs and the 504s make your request legal. and you don't want to risk your child's grade. I told you about middle school and high school PE. Most of them grade 1/3 of the grade on dressing out, 1/3 on participation, and 1/3 on how well they do, their effort. Without a 504 or an IEP, a student could lose 1/3 to 2/3 of their grade. But if she is participating to the extent she is allowed, and she makes an effort and she dresses out, she's entitled to a full grade. Okay. And while we're talking about advocating for your students, at least one of you had a teenager, and maybe you've seen it already. If not, it may be coming. But almost all of them get to a point where they say, I'm tired. I'm tired of being different. I'm tired of having this disease. I'm just going to ignore it. They may try to hide their condition. Sometimes parents may validate the deception. It's not a good policy for the student's safety. I had 2 students whose parent did not put down Marfan syndrome, just the meds that the guys were taking. I recognized atenolol. It's a blood pressure medication, and it's also given to people with Marfan syndrome. Well, there is a huge difference between treating high blood pressure or preventing an aortic dissection. And the problem is that not everybody knows that atenolol is one of the medications of choice. They may only see it as a blood pressure medication, and it may not click with them. Okay. One of the things that does happen is that the student may become depressed. Now, your doctor may order medication and antidepressant to help with that. And it has its place, don't get me wrong, but it's even more important to address the cause. They are depressed because they're limited in some ways, but they aren't the only student in the school that is in that position. Others are limited as well. When you remind them from the very beginning that they are unique and it's a badge of honor to be one of a kind, that they can't do some of the things they want to, but find out what they can do and support that. And then hold them accountable, just as the normal students they want to be are. They may only be allowed to walk the mile, not run it, but they will dress out for PE and they will walk the mile. Then we have some special situations. Does your student need scoliosis checks, ice for joints, or an elevator pass because they have skeletal issues? What about vision? Does the student need more frequent vision checks? Maybe they need visually impaired services. This doesn't mean they are in a special class. It may mean that they just need a different background on their computer screen or enlarged print so they can see it better. The school nurse can be that liaison because visually impaired services doesn't come in until something shows up and they are contacted. And allergies, if the allergy is severe enough that the doctor is ordering an EpiPen, make sure everyone knows it is not as effective if the student is on atenolol. And so they need to have a backup EpiPen. And then when there are class changes, notify the school nurse. Ask her to speak and send documentation to the new teacher. Ask if the care plan needs to be changed. We may need to modify the care plan to reflect a new PE time or a new lunch time, a longer distance between classes, more steps to climb. The student may need extra time between classes or an elevator pass. Even when the nurse is at the school full-time, she is rarely notified by school staff of class changes. We need your help to keep your students safe. And then if there are other special situations, with the heart or the aorta or the lungs or whatever, please talk to us about it and see what we can do to help. And then I'm going to ask for myself and for other school nurses that you advocate for your school nurse. The new guidelines approved by the National Association of School Nurses and the American Academy of Pediatrics support one registered nurse all day, every day, in every school building. 27% of the students have a chronic condition, and that includes Marfan's. Your students, as well as the rest of that 27%, deserve the right to be safe. 32% of the school nurse's time is spent on mental health issues, and this includes speaking with students who are sick and tired of being, quote, sick with Marfan's, diabetes, asthma, seizures, whatever. Your student shouldn't have to wait until Wednesday when the nurse is there to talk. And students who are being bullied, don't make an appointment with the guidance counselor. They usually go to the clinic with an upset stomach or a headache. We are very often the first ones to recognize that a bullying situation is going on. And then ask, how often is the RN present in the school? Who mans the clinic when he or she isn't there? It's often manned by a clinic assistant or a health tech or a CNA or an LPN. And I've worked with some awesome people over the years, but they can't write nursing care plans or emergency care plans. They can't do IEPs or 504s. They can't write medical referrals or take an oral order from the doctor. They can ask the doctor to fax it over, but they can't take it. And if the school has nobody, who are the students going to? In many schools, it's the school secretary that handles the students, and she goes into default mode because she still has her own job to do. She'll send the student home. Study was done here in Florida. 85% of students that came to see the school secretary were sent home, as opposed to 5 to 10% when the nurse was there. The other thing is they don't have medical training. They can miss key symptoms, and they may think the student is faking and send them back to class. So please take the information that you have learned and speak up at school board meetings. Speak to legislators when they're home. Speak to their legislative assistants because they have the ear of their boss. Email, call, or write them. And if something good has happened, tell them thank you. Let them know that you are watching and that you do care when they advocate. And remember who you are. You are a voter. You are a parent. You are someone who wants all students to be safe, not just from guns, but secure in the knowledge that the student can get an education even with a chronic medical condition. And then remember who you are not. You are not a school nurse who, as one was told, just wants to save her job. What you are is a parent who recognizes that your child is one of many who need a nurse all day, every day, in every school. I really appreciate you spending the time with me. Working together, we can make a difference for our students. My goal is to develop an independent student that can grow and learn, become a functioning adult. It won't happen if I stick my head in the sand and ignore the student, or will it happen if I do everything for them and don't give them a chance to learn responsibility? It does happen when they know that I'm there to talk to and I'm there to support them. I won't ignore their condition, but learn as much as I can so I can give them the freedom to grow up. Eileen, back to you.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Kathleen. That was great. We have a couple more speakers, and we're going to take questions and answers, but I just want to let everybody know that I'm going to, if it's okay with Kathleen, I'm going to find a way to make this PowerPoint available to all of you. There's so much great information on here and lists, and I just found it really helpful. So we will make that available to all of you. So now I want to introduce you all to Maya Brown-Zimmerman, and her son is Julian. He's 7 and he has Marfan. As you can see, I'm sure you're going to get this question, Maya. You may have to address this, but she does have the best Marfan t-shirt saying, "Don't mess with Marfan moms." So she is one of a kind, a great advocate, and obviously a great advocate for her son. So Maya, why don't you just give a few minutes on your insights in this area?
Okay. Did you want me to do video or no?
If you would like to, that would be great. We can all see you.
It tells me that you stopped it, so you have to.
Oh, okay. I did not know that. All right, why don't you just keep going? I don't want to take any more time.
Okay.
Okay.
So I have Marfan syndrome, as Eileen said, and so does my son, Julian. So we've been working with the school nurse in our school district since he started preschool at 3.5. And we've had a different nurse every year. So we've had to re-go through the meetings every year. I think the presentation we just had was fantastic. I learned new things that I haven't done before. Like I've never had the nurse come to a 504 meeting, but now I think I'm going to. So what I usually do is reach out to the nurse just before school starts and set up a time to meet. And then I take parts of the school nurses packet that's on the Marfan Foundation website. And I don't take the whole thing, but I go through and I print pages that are relevant to Julian and I highlight the sections that are relevant. And then I bring in a list of his medications. And at least with our school district, and I think most school districts are like this, they have forms online that have to be filled out in order for any medication to be given to the student. And we have a form specifically for an asthma care plan. And so I print all those off before I go to the meeting and have the appropriate doctors sign them so that they're ready to go for his first day of school, which includes getting a copy of his, or a box of his asthma meds. And they have a nebulizer there. So if your child has asthma, that's a good question to ask. So I just bring his own mask and tubing and we label that in a bag. So I have all of that ready to go for the first meeting. And we go over his health history and what his restrictions look like, and then what different medical emergencies could occur and what the symptoms of those are, and then what I would like them to do. We did have a communication issue that made me rethink how I need to phrase things. Because what I've always said is that if he gets it in the head, I need a phone call, just so that I know when he gets home that I can check his vision and make sure his retina is okay. I didn't explicitly say that if you don't get a hold of me, you should call my husband. And if you don't get a hold of him, you should call my mother-in-law, because I thought that that was just standard, but it's not. So he actually had an incident at the beginning of last year where he got hit in the head, and they called me and left a voicemail that said, oh, he got bumped in the head. And I didn't worry about it till he got home with a black eye and concussion protocol. And so we had to go back to the school and explain, like, when there's an actual serious injury and it's not just he bumped his head on the chalkboard, you know, you need to follow these steps so that we can make sure we get things taken care of, because we had to spend the night in the emergency room and follow-up appointments for the next few weeks from that. So we've kind of had to alter things as he gets older and more issues come up. But I found that the school nurse is easy to work with. And I, after this presentation, see her as an even better resource to make sure that all the various teachers are on board and understanding what they need to be looking for as well. Because we're not just talking about aortic dissection, you know, we're looking at issues with the retinas and the lenses and pneumothorax and things like that too. So we go through all of that with them.
Great. Thank you so much, Maya. That was good. I'm sure people are going to have questions for you as well after this, because you've really been on the ground and you've got so much experience here. So I'm glad to hear you've learned some things too. Is there something else?
The one thing I would add is that now that we have the Backpack Health app, which I know you're going to talk about next, I think that's really going to be the easiest way for us to bring the information to the school nurse in an easy to read and easy to scan in an emergency format. So that's something that we've already been using with the doctors, and I think it's going to be really great for the schools too.
Well, thank you very much for that segue. So I am going to stop sharing my screen, and first I'll show you that we're going to have Kate Celauro from Backpack Health on next, and she is going to tell you about this app. And I know she is an expert on Zoom. So, Kate, can you grab that now?
Yes. Can you hear me okay, Eileen?
I hear you.
Okay, great. Hang on one second. I'm going to share my iPhone screen. I hope everybody's able to see this.
I see it.
Backpack, we're really excited to be here. This is a great presentation too. I learned a lot. I'm a mom of 3. One of my kids is starting kindergarten in the fall, so I was taking notes as well with all of you. Backpack is an app that really is a tool for you and your loved ones, your kids, whomever you're caring for. For our purposes today, it really is our kids we're talking about. But Backpack's an app that can be used on your desktop at home. It can be used on iPhone or Android, and it syncs across all of your devices. So we've designed Backpack to be a place where you can keep all of your health information and the health information for your loved ones in one secure place. And through the Marfan Foundation, you're actually able to join, to sign up for Backpack, our pro version, which is all of our features for free. And you can do that through our website at backpackhealth.com. You'll see a banner at the top, Marfan Foundation, and that's where you can sign up and join for yourself and or your kids. So as I mentioned, Backpack isn't just for me to keep track of my health information. I can add my files, I can add notes, I can add all of my different pieces of health info, but I can also keep others in my Backpack. So here I'm showing that I can manage like an elderly parent, but specifically I want to show you how, all of your kids' info, whether they have, chronic or complex diseases that you're tracking, or whether they're relatively healthy. It's important to, keep track of all of their stuff, and it's helpful to have that in one place. So here you can see, one of my kiddos, this is all test data. This is not real data, but this is my real son's face. And I use Backpack for myself and my kids' info. And here I'm just kind of showing how I can keep track of all of these things, files. We talked about doctor's orders. Snap a picture or upload it from your desktop, and you can add that to your child's Backpack. X-rays, immunization records, all the stuff that you want to include for that school nurse to have. It's really easy to do that. We have something called share cards on Backpack, and this is a really easy way for you to know what information is being shared with who. We have an emergency share card that you can, print out this URL and access code, have that in the Backpack or on a piece of medical jewelry. And anyone who accesses that can see any emergency information that you've included on that card, such as, notes or contact information for emergency contacts. That's all available by just kind of sharing that URL. I'm showing here that I've also added a Sunshine School Nurse. So a specific share card that I could share with my school nurse. I could simply share this via email or print it out and take it in. But here, everything I've included on that share card from my Backpack is here for me. I can even click on these files or tap to open those, and all the information's here in one place. And we've designed it to be user-friendly, easy to use, but we know you may have questions as you get started. And we are more than happy to answer those questions. You can contact us from within the app by simply chatting with us. Here's a contact us place right there. You can access our help center to get more information on how to do things. And you can always email us at help@backpackhealth.com. I'll stop there. And there's a lot more I'd love to go into, but if you have questions, we'll be more than happy to answer those.
Thank you so much, Kate. That was a really quick overview. I know there's so much there. It's such a great tool for people. But we'll take some questions here, and then just to assure you again that when we do send out the follow-up email with the link to the recording and the survey, there will also be a link to Backpack Health, so you can read more about what you're able to do with Backpack Health through the Marfan Foundation. And then obviously you can take it from there and do as much as you get the information that you need to get started. So let's see.
Eileen,
yes.
Eileen, before you begin the first question, there's something I really need to say that was supposed to be in my presentation, and I skipped right over.
Sure.
You do not use email for confidential information. It is considered a public document. somebody can go in and say, I want to see all the emails related to Evan Smith. And if it's in an email, they can get it. So the printout, what she said about printout or email, please don't email if you want it to stay confidential. Definitely print it out. That is an awesome app. Awesome.
Great. Thank you for that, Kathleen. Really appreciate it. So we have the first question. This is for you, Kathleen. So a mom asked that you said to share the diagnosis with the school, but what if there isn't a specific diagnosis on paper? A lot of times with Marfan or one of the related conditions, they're kind of, they suspect it and they're maybe treating the child as if they have it, but they don't really have the diagnosis yet. So should they try to get the doctor to put a specific diagnosis on paper? What's your take on that?
That they are under care for Marfan's, is how you would put it. The doctor isn't positive yet, but that's how he's treating the child, and that's what he's examining and looking for. So it would be under care for Marfan's.
If people look back at the on our website about getting diagnosed with Marfan, there's one category where it's like emerging Marfan syndrome, because this situation does come up, and so
that would be appropriate too.
That would be appropriate. So are there any other questions? If people want to put those in the question box, I'm looking. I got a couple of emails with questions as well that I'm looking for. Any other questions there? Surprised I don't see more questions. I guess it was a great presentation there. Nobody really is asking questions. Does anybody have any tips for other people that they think would help? Wow, look at that.
There's a question in the chat box, I think.
Oh, okay. I did not see that. Why don't you address that, Kate? 'Cause I'm not getting it up here right now. I'm not seeing it.
Terry's asking, she's thankful for the information, make a point to clarify with the teachers and nurse, and then she has a question, the web can be shared with all grandparents. I'm not sure, maybe, is that referring, I'm not sure what that might be referring to, Terry, if you want to clarify, or Eileen, if you.
Oh, no, I can,
yes,
no,
okay.
I can see it. Okay.
And maybe, backpack. Yeah, so I'm not sure if this is getting to your question or not, Terry, but Kathleen's exactly right. You don't want to email the share card to the school nurse. You want to print that out. But for anybody else in your life, a family member, someone else, you want to have all of your child's health information, whether you want to share that as their complete health history or their emergency card. When you're sharing with your family members, you can share those. We have the secure URL and access code to allow for easier sharing. And you can also share access. I didn't show it, but when you're looking at those dependent profiles, you can actually invite someone else just to share access to that backpack with you. So a grandparent can have access to the child's backpack, or a spouse or partner can manage that child's profile with you. So when you update something, they see it as well in their backpack. So seamless to kind of co-manage the backpacks together.
Great, thank you for doing that. And I have another question for you guys, maybe really for Kathleen. I think there's, as a parent, you're very concerned, and you want to present like the factual information. And I have a parent who's asking, how do I express the proper level of concern to the school nurse? Maybe there's something with a balance between what the doctor. I think maybe that's related to the permissions and the restrictions. A lot of times, schools go overboard with how much they want to restrict the child, where the doctors are saying it's okay, but the school gets a little nervous. So how do we find the right balance between the parents' concern, that the doctor's orders about what they can't do, but what they can do, and then the school's worry about something bad happening at school?
One of the things in the need to know information for the school nurse, believe it or not, I actually worked on that several years ago, and I worked with an orthopedic doctor out in Wyoming. And what she did was make like a form where the doctor could check, this is okay, this is okay, this is okay, this is okay. And that would be a good thing so that the nurse knows these are allowed. Please let the PE teacher know. I think probably the thing that's going to ring truest is when you make a point of making an appointment and showing up and talking to them about it and then giving them the information. You know, this isn't something that you're saying to them in passing as you take your kid to his new teacher's class. You're sitting down, this is important, okay? Sometimes a school nurse is looking at 3 brand new diabetics that have come into the school over the summer, newly diagnosed, and she's thinking, okay, if I don't get this insulin correct, I have a huge problem on my hands. And that may seem to take a higher priority. And in triage, it would be a higher priority, but your child's safety will be up there too. What you want to do is put the safeguards in place, putting it in writing, asking them for a copy of what they have put in writing. I would get worried if they said, I don't ever worry about writing that, I just have a conversation with the teacher. That would raise a red flag for me, because who remembers everything? And especially if it's a brand new diagnosis to that teacher, they're still absorbing it. And a lot of what's being said doesn't even register with them. But if they have it in writing, they can go back and look at it and go, oh, okay, yeah, now that I need to.
Great. Well, thank
the
you.
opposite end was the parent that stayed at school all day, every day, just in case. At some point, you've got to allow the school to do its job, and you've got to show trust in your own child that they know how to take care of themselves.
If I can add one,
there stuff happens, you know, but.
If I can just add one thing that I think Maya might be able to weigh in related to this is that, you know, there is a whole, you know, Marfan moms talk to each other. And if you're having some concern issues about, obviously there's direct things you talk to the school about, but if it's your worry and how you handle things, there's an amazing network of Marfan moms around the country who are active online. Maya is very connected, and you know you can get support from them as well as from the Marfan Foundation. But we are not Marfan moms. We are here to help you. But Maya, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I would definitely suggest to any of the moms here that they get connected through social media with the other moms. We have a Facebook group that's devoted just to moms of kids with Marfan and related conditions. We have a Facebook group that's for moms that have Marfan or related condition themselves as well. Any of you are welcome to shoot me a message on Facebook if you want help getting connected to those groups, because I'm pretty sure I'm the only Maya Brown-Zimmerman on Facebook. So I'm happy to talk with all of you and get you connected too.
Great, thank you. A couple of the questions that are up here. Somebody is asking about how to contact Backpack Health. Easiest thing, just go to marfan.org, and Backpack Health is front and center right on the front of our website, so you can click there and read all about that. That was an easy question, so I wanted to answer that quickly. I have a question about suggestions for high school. Somebody is new to Marfan, and how does it work in high school? Do you need to meet with all the teachers or just the school nurse there?
I would meet with all the teachers as a parent. when you have your 504 IEP meeting, I would want all of the special teachers to be there, especially phys ed, so that you can make sure that everybody's on the same page. Because I just know it's my experience as a high school student, when that didn't happen, it was very stressful because different teachers wanted to follow different rules because everybody didn't know about the 504.
Kathleen, what's your input on that?
I agree. All the teachers should be there. I also know the reality that there are some of them that won't be there, and it's another reason why you get things in writing and then you make sure it goes to the teacher. A lot of school districts are set up so that you can email the teacher, and it would be perfectly appropriate the day after the meeting to email the teacher if you have that capability and say, did you get the paperwork on Jason Brown that I sent or that we wrote up, so that you would know what he is and isn't allowed to do. But yeah, I agree. If at all possible, get all the teachers there. Let them all hear the same thing. I had a student once with asthma that the teacher wouldn't send him to the clinic because she had an aunt with asthma and he wasn't wheezing like Aunt Matilda was. Well, of course not. He's a kid. Most kids don't wheeze that much. They cough.
Right.
But she didn't know that.
Right.
And she had made her own, quote, diagnosis of what was going on. So yes, the more teachers that can hear things from the get-go, the safer your student is going to be.
Thank you. I have time for one more question before we end, and I've had a really great question that is different than everything else that's being asked. And Kathleen, you're so on top of all this, and you're really talking about the school nurses who are very focused on the parents and what they're saying. And occasionally, just like in any profession, there's a school nurse that might not be quite as on the ball as we'd like. So what about a school nurse who doesn't believe the diagnosis of the child? Because in Marfan, these kids frequently look okay. And so what happens when you encounter a school healthcare team that doesn't believe the specialists and subspecialists, and then maybe even goes as far to report the parents when the family to CPS when the family asks for an IEP? Like, maybe that's a little extreme, that end part. That's kind of how the question came across to me. But what if you have a school nurse that just thinks the kid's fine and you're overreacting? Is that like that you have to go, then you really need the stuff from the doctors, right? The doctor's orders.
That's when you need things from the doctors, yes. That's when it would be nice if the school nurse was getting an in-service that says, not everybody with Marfan's is real tall, real skinny, with real long arms and legs, that they can have different signs and symptoms. In lieu of that, though, yes, or even if you're able to have that, get the paperwork from the doctor with the diagnosis. Yes.
Right. Okay, great. Thank you. So I do have the rest of your questions here. And so I will take a look at those afterwards and see if there's other questions that you guys have. Obviously, you can keep, emailing me if you have other questions, or the Nurse in Our Help Center. I also want to encourage you to go to our website, marfan.org, and go to Patients and Families and then Patient Resources. And you will see these two. They're pretty thick downloads, but it's worth at least printing one out and bringing it to your school, or one to a teacher. Need to know information for the school nurse and need to know information for the teacher. Kathleen worked on these with us many years ago, and just fortuitous that I ran into her again this year. So glad to meet a school nurse who was such a champion for us. And she helped us develop this, and there's a lot more in here than what she said, a lot more about 504s, IEPs, and all that. As I mentioned, Jan, the Nurse in Our Help and Resource Center, is always available. Her contact information should be on the screen. Oh, I can't move that, but her information is jlynch@marfan.org. So our next webinar, we're going to change pace a little bit. Still focusing on quality of life. But our next webinar is on September 24th, and the title is Managing Pain. And this is going to be presented by Dr. Tracy Speed from Johns Hopkins University. Registration's up already, so you can visit our website now and register if you'd like. So I want to thank all of our panelists today. That was really great. And we will have this up online shortly, and we'll be emailing all of you. And if you have any suggestions for future topics, feel free to contact me. And thank you again all, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.